Hi, I'm Jessie Budzinski, and I'm the Assistant Department Chair of the Human Services Department here at PG. And I'm talking today with Tralisha Johnson Clay, who is an application specialist with the Center for Credentialing and Education. Hopefully, I got all that right.
You did. Hello,
And
everybody.
we are going to be talking about the Human Services Board Certified Practitioner Credential.
That's a lot.
Yes, it's a mouthful. Both the credential and the exam, students often have a lot of questions. So we wanted to kind of talk about some of those questions, give some answers, and hopefully that will be helpful to students.
Sounds good.
What do you think are some reasons that students opt to get this credential?
Well, the main reason is that you want to stand out when you're applying for jobs. And what will happen is when you take the HS-BCP, it helps applicants to stand out from their job applicants and human services practitioners. And it signifies that the HS-BCP voluntarily met board requirements and include an examination based on the national standards of the field for human services. So pretty much you're just saying that you meet the board certification requirements. And if you have that certification, you stand out from those that don't have the certification.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks great on a resume. We always
Yep.
tell our students it's a way to kind of stand out from the crowd, potentially that they have this independent verification of their knowledge. So that's great. And for our students specifically, one question that we get a lot is, when are they eligible? So for us, for our students, they have to be in academic good standing and have 15 or fewer credit hours left to complete in their program. And when they get to that point, then they would reach out to me as the campus coordinator for the exam and for the credential. I give them information about registering, about the exam. And then at that point too, sometimes if they have questions, we kind of loop you in. So it's the both of us kind of back and forth, tag teaming, helping students with questions that they might have. But in terms of, from our perspective, that's when students are eligible. It's kind of towards the end of the program. One of the benefits, or I guess I should ask you to talk about one of the benefits of taking the exam and getting started as a student.
Well, the main thing and the biggest thing, if you take it as a student, the information is still kind of fresh in your brain and in your mind. So you don't, so as you're going through the program, you're kind of remembering and learning different things. And while it's fresh on your brain, you can go ahead and take the exam versus waiting until after you graduate and then you kind of get started with different things. Life goes on and you start forgetting stuff. So it's better to go ahead and take it as a student. Again, that information being fresh, it's nothing like having fresh information instead of trying to go back and kind of refresh yourself. So if you can sit as a student, I would recommend sitting as a student just because that information is fresh. And then once you graduate, you don't have to kind of sit around and wait for your credentials before you apply. And you can just go ahead and just start applying. And then once you get certified, you can go ahead and add the credentials versus waiting until you're completely done with your program after you graduated. Life happens and then you're trying to get back into it. So go ahead and do it while you can.
Absolutely. And there's a discounted rate for students as well, right? For the
Correct.
exam? Okay.
Yes. So there is a fee of $180 for students to apply. And you can take it either at a Pearson View Center or you can take it on view through Pearson View. They have different requirements, compatibility requirements. Having a camera is the biggest thing. They'll use the camera to kind of scope the room to make sure you don't have any materials or anything like that. But they'll also have like a live proctor that'll be there watching you as you take your exam. So if you're comfortable, as long as you have somebody watching you live on the camera, if you're comfortable with that, then you always can take it online or take it, at home where you're comfortable. But if not, you also have that option to go into a Pearson View Center.
Okay, awesome. And I know from talking with students, once you're ready and go through the registration process, and if you're doing it online, you can sign up. It happens pretty quickly, right? You
It
don't have
does.
to wait.
hmm
Yeah.
The availability has opened up since COVID. Now that they have that on view, they really kind of have people ready to proctor.
Okay.
The calendar, it changes, but with the HSBCP, it's a not as common of a frequent exam, so it's always available kind of as needed. So
Okay.
as the students register and they receive their candidate ID, they can go ahead in and schedule their exam. And they
Okay.
receive a 6-month window. So they'll get their candidate ID, have 6 months, and they can kind of plan and schedule when they want to take their exam.
Oh, perfect. And that kind of answers my next question,
Mhm.
which was how long are students kind of considered students? So
Mhm.
so they have like a 6-month window.
Well, once their application is created, most student applications are active for 2 years. So they
Okay.
have 2 years to use that student application
Okay.
where they'll get that student discount. Once that application closed, then they'll have to submit like more of like a professional application once they graduate. But within those 2 year period of when they create their account or when you provide them with that gateway credentialing information and they
Mhm.
create their account, that's kind of when that 2 year period time will start.
Okay.
So say today someone started their account 213, then in 2 years, the end of the month 228, 229, 2026. That's when
Okay.
they'll have that period to submit their application. But once they submit their application and get approved to sit, they'll receive 6 months to sit
Okay.
for their application.
Okay. That's great. That's super helpful.
And if they and just in case if anyone doesn't pass that first time, they'll have an option to retake.
Okay.
But it will be like they have to wait 90 days. Pearson make them wait a 90-day period.
Okay.
Outside of that 90-day period, they can go back in and register. Retake exams are $100 instead of $180. So
Okay.
just keep that in mind. When you do a retake, it will be 100. So we would like for students to, when they register, they're ready at that time.
Hmm.
So because of the cost and everything, but if you're not in some situation you have to retake it, then you can. You just have to wait the 90 days and pay the $100 fee.
Okay. And what about, I feel like students ask this often, what is a passing score?
Passing score for the HS-BCP is a 66.
Okay.
And typically what happens is they'll take the exam and typically at the end they'll receive a numeric score. And then within like 6 to 8 weeks they'll receive a what's called a pass and fail report. Other exams that we have, they don't have like a passing score that students know, but because for this one, the passing score is 66. So if a student take the exam today, they get a score report and it says 69, then they can automatically kind of assume that they've passed. But they want to
Okay.
make sure they receive the pass or fail report that says pass or fail, so that way they have that on their records as well when continue on. Yep.
Okay. Perfect. What is the next step after they pass the exam and graduate?
Once they pass the exam and graduate, they can then send us their official transcript, and then that'll go through they'll go through a review process and all of that. And then they will, once they approve, because they've already passed, once we receive that final transcript, and then they'll just be able, at that point, they'll be able to use their credentialing or their credentials, saying that they have been certified and have the credentials. So then at that point, they can use them.
And then when does they have to earn 350 hours
Yes.
of experience? Yeah.
Yes, and that's post-degree experience. There's a verification form that their supervisor can fill out and say, hey, Sue was here for X number of hours and she did X, Y, and Z, and she'll sign off on it and you'll just submit it in and our reviewer will go back and review and make sure you have the 350 hours and that'll be pretty much it.
And they get that form from your agency has that, right?
Correct. Hmm.
Okay.
So as they're filling out their application, it'll ask some questions, and based on their response, it'll provide them with the documentation. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. And then once someone no longer a student, now they're working in the field, they have the credential. Is there anything that they have to do to maintain that?
To maintain their credentialing, HS-BCPs must pay an annual maintenance fee and recertify at the end of 5 years.
Okay.
So there will be a recertification at the end of 5 years, and there will be must complete 60 clock hours of relevant continuing education.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. That's super helpful.
No problem.
Is there anything else that you feel like students ask you or would be helpful for them to know?
I know it could be confusing along the way. So I
Right.
think the easiest thing is just being me, just letting them know that I myself is available. And if they
Okay.
have any questions, that they can reach out to me directly, because it's really case by case. Every scenario is a little bit different. So they can really just reach out to me directly, or you through you.
Sure.
The exams are offered as needed. So once they apply, typically give us about 7 to 10 days to get your candidate ID to you. And then once you receive that, it's really just going to Pearson View and scheduling their exam and going from there.
This has been super helpful. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. I'm glad I could help.
After Tralisha and I met, we thought of a couple of other things that we wanted to clarify. So in terms of the exam itself, it consists of 10 case vignettes that describe human services settings, clients, and issues. And then each vignette is followed by 10 multiple choice questions. So in total, it's 100 multiple choice questions, and you have 3 hours to complete the test. The other part that we wanted to clarify was that in order to maintain the credential, there's two things that you have to do. There's a $40 annual maintenance fee that you have to pay. And then at the end of 5 years, you have to make sure that you have documented 60 hours of continuing education. And on their website, there's information about, specifically what they're looking for, but you just have to make sure that, each 5 years that you have the credential, that you're keeping good documentation of continuing education and that it totals 60 hours for the 5 years.